Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be adding Expo push notifications to our application. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is go and search for their documentation under Expo push notifications. I'm just going to click this first link. Here we have 3 different links for setup, sending, and receiving. I'm just going to open these in new tabs. And here there's the Expo push notification tool. I'm going to open that as well. So now I'm going to go to the setup portion. And I'm going to copy this code that they are showing. Now I'm going to go back into my application, create a new hook called use notifications. And then I'm just going to paste that code into here. So we'll have to change some things within it. So we'll do this. We need to get the package here for Expo notifications and Expo device. So let's go into the terminal, do Expo install, Expo-notifications and Expo-device. All right, so with those installed, let's go and import those in this file. And here we aren't going to be setting any state within this hook, so we'll get rid of that. And we need to import platform from React Native. And then we'll return this within an object here at the end. All right, now let's go back to the documentation. And we will see that for credentials on Android, we have to set up a Firebase project. So I'm going to do that right now. And here we're going to open up the Firebase console and go create a new project. So I'm going to pick Apartments Clone. I created this when setting up the Google OAuth. And I'll just continue. I'm not going to enable analytics. You can if you want. Now let's go create a new Android application. Here we need to add a package name to our app. So I'm going to go into app.json and change the scheme. And then under Android, I need to add in a new field for the package name. So here for this scheme, I'm going to go with com, Jeremy Persing, apartments clone. Call this whatever you want, but follow this syntax of com dot blank dot blank. And now under Android, I'm going to add a new field called package and just put in the same string as my scheme above. Now let's copy this and go back to our setup within Firebase and add it here. Our app nickname is Apartments Clone. Now let's register the app. Download Google services.json. And we want to put that in the root of our project. I'm going to get rid of this -2 here. So rename. And here we'll go add next, next, and continue to console. So we're going to want to add this underneath Android here. I'm going to put it underneath package, and that will point to the file that we just added. Go ahead and confirm that the API key in the Google services.json file matches what you have in your Google Cloud Platform API credentials. Now let's go add some credentials to Expo so that they can send notifications. So we need to go back to Firebase, click on this gear, and then go to project settings. Go to cloud messaging. And now we need to enable cloud messaging. the legacy version. So now copy the token next to the server key. And now we'll run this command. All right, so we're all set there. Now I'm going to go to receiving notifications and add some of this code into the project. And really what I care about here is setting the notification handler, registering the received listener and response listener, and then these two methods that they're showing here. So I'm going to go into index over here, and that is our navigation. And within the root navigator, I'm going to use a useEffect hook. So I'm going to import that. And we're going to run this on the initial app opening. And here we need to import everything as notifications. And should play sound, should set badge. We're going to set that to true. Right, so with that implemented, let's go into use notifications and add in two new functions. So within use notifications, we need two more functions, one for handling notifications whenever the app is foregrounded, and then another for whenever the notification is pressed. And here we need to import linking. So handle notification would be useful if you want to update maybe data on a certain page or within your application. And then handling a notification response, I see that being useful for going to a certain screen within your app. And we're going to export these as well. Now let's go back to index. Above this useEffect, let's call our use notifications hook and get register push notifications async and handle notification response. And we just need to import that. Now, above setting our notification handler here, we are going to register for push notifications. And beneath it, we are going to set a response listener for whenever a notification is pressed. So now we can go back to use notifications, and we will just make sure that this is obvious. So we'll state token, and then I'm going to reload my app. So after restarting my device, I can now copy over my push token and go to the notification tool, paste that in here, and send myself a new notification. So I'm going to have a title of hey and a body of it works, and I'll send that notification now. And here in the top of my screen, you can see that I'm getting these different notifications of hey, it works. And if I set this flag to true so that it does play a sound, then it will actually show up on the screen whenever the app is foregrounded. And there you can see that. Now, if I go outside of the app and test it, then I can click on that and go to the home screen of my application. So that's pretty cool, but in prod, you're not going to want to use this. So we need to go and implement sending notifications from our server. So let's go and do that. For sending notifications, and since we are using Golang, I'm going to go use the Go SDK. If you're using Node.js, just use SDK Node. And I'm going to open that in a new tab. Here I'm going to get this package. So with that done, I'm going to create a new utility function, or rather it's going to be a utility file for notifications. Now the package here is utils. We're going to import errors, FMT, and the Expo server SDK. We'll initialize our push client, and then we'll create a function to send notifications. It's going to take in these parameters. We'll get our token. If there's an error, we need to return the error. Otherwise, we'll get the response and a push error if there happens to be one. If there is a push error, we'll return that push error, and then we will validate the response. And if everything checks out, then we will just return nil. Now we can go create a new route for sending notifications. And this is just going to be a test route to call this function. So here we'll specify that the package is routes. We'll import iris and utils. Then we'll create a function called test message notifications. For the data here, I'm going to create a URL which will point to the message screen, and the property ID for the root.params will be 101, and this corresponds to a property within my database. And then we will test out that send notification function we just created, passing in the Expo push token for our device. We'll have the title just be push title, and then the push body is just some random text here. And at the end, we'll just say sent is true. And you wouldn't do something like this in production where you'd call this endpoint, but what you would do is you'd call this send notification function whenever you need to send a notification to a specific user. So with that done, let's go to main.go, and we'll create a new party for notifications, and we'll just have a post endpoint called test, passing in the test message notification function we just created. Now we can start our server, and we can test this out. So I have Thunder client, and I can just make a post request to that endpoint, and we should see it on our device. So there we have push title, push body is this message. If I press it, nothing happens yet because I need to go set up the linking configuration within my application. So let's go do that real quick. We need to go to linking configuration. So here within the linking configuration, we have this message screen. I need to modify this. So the path is going to be message, and it will have a parameter of property ID. So now if we save that and we test it out, it should take us to that screen. All right, so before we go and test this again, let's go to our message screen and change some things so that we don't get errors when we try and go there, pressing on the notification. So first things first, we can get rid of all this crap about finding the index of a property. All that was just for testing purposes. And then we can import use selected property query, and we can query our server so that we can find the property with the passed in property ID. And then here above our return statement, we will say if there is no user, we want to return a sign up or sign in screen. And if there's no property, we'll just say that we were unable to get the property. I'm going to get rid of this import for properties, and I'm going to import sign up or sign in screen. Then here where we're rendering out an image, let's just make sure that we have an image to render before we do so. And same thing with the property name here. All right, now let's go and test this. So if we press on this, we will now get taken to the message screen. And if we are outside of the app and get sent a notification, we will get taken there as well. So now we just need to store whether or not the user allows notifications, and we need to store their push tokens associated with their account. So to do that, I'm going to go first modify my user model, and I'm going to add in two new fields. So one is push tokens. That's going to be JSON, but really that's going to be an array of push tokens, and then allows notifications, which will just be a Boolean pointer. And the reason I'm making this an array is because a user can sign in from multiple devices, and one push token is associated with one device. So with that out of the way, let's go and create some new functions in our user route. The data structures that these will be taking in are add push token input, which will just have a required string, and allows notifications input, which will have a required Boolean pointer. Now I'm going to put these underneath the alter user saved properties function. The first function will be add push token, and we will get the user ID from the parameters. Then we will get the user from our database based upon the parameters. If no user exists, then we will just return. Next, we need to check that the body of the request is valid. And then we'll create two new slices, one for unmarshaled tokens and then one for push tokens. And if the push tokens of the user is not equal to nil, then we need to unmarshal those tokens and they will go into the unmarshaled tokens slice. Now, if the unmarshaled tokens does not contain the token within the request body, then we will append that to unmarshaled tokens, and then we will assign that to push tokens. Otherwise, push tokens will just be the unmarshaled tokens. Then we'll marshal our push tokens, and if we get an error during that, we'll send an internal server error, and then we need to assign those push tokens to the user, and we will update that user within our database. And then we'll send off a status code of 204. Next, we'll create another function called allows notifications. We'll get the user ID from the parameters, then we'll get the user from our database. Then we will make sure that the request is valid. Then we'll set the user.allows notifications to whatever the request body states. We'll update our user, and then we will send off a status code of 204. And one other thing that we need to do is we need to go to every place that we are returning a user, and we'd also like to return their allows notification status. So we'll say allows notifications, be new user dot allows notifications. Now let's go to main.go, and here we'll add two new patch endpoints for the push token and then the settings for notifications. Now I'm going to start this up again and then head over to my application code. On second thought, I'm reconsidering the design I implemented for add push token. I think that we need to call this alter push token, and we need to allow the functionality to remove a push token. And the reason that I came to this conclusion is because if a user logs in on a certain device and allows notifications on that device, then we will store the push token for that device. But if the user then logs out for that device, the push token will still be stored, and we will send a notification to that device whenever that user's account is pinged. And this would be problematic because we would be sending notifications to a person who isn't the user. So I think that whenever a user logs out, we need to remove the push token for that device. And to do that, we just need to alter this add push token function that we created. So I'm going to go alter the struct as well so that it matches what we need. So it's no longer add push token input, it will be alter push token input. We're going to have an op just like we have for saved properties input. Let's change this here. And here where we have this if statement for if slices contains the token in the request body, we will just wrap that in an if statement itself. For the op, if it's add, then we will do what we just did. But if it's remove and the length of the unmarshaled tokens is greater than 0, then we will filter the unmarshaled tokens so that they do not contain the token that is passed in to the body. And then everything else is going to be the same. And we just need to go into main.go and change this. All right, now we can start up our server and head over to our application code. All right, so here I am in my application code. I'm going to add those endpoints that we just created. We'll call them push token endpoint and allows notifications endpoint, and we'll add those down in the endpoints object. Now let's go to the user type, and we'll add in allows notifications and push token. And push token is not going to be a string array because we only want to represent the current device. Now I'm going to go to my user service, and I'm going to create two new functions to call those patch endpoints for altering a push token and allowing notifications. Now I'm going to go into use user, and here I'm going to abstract this into its own function. And I'm going to replace any time that we were using these 3 lines of code, I'm just going to replace it with this function call. And now we'll create a function for adding a push token. And here we need to add this import. And we'll create a function for altering a user's allows notifications. And we'll have to import this as well. And within our logout function, we will add in some logic to remove an Expo push token from a user's account if they log out and that token is available. So for that, we're going to have to import everything as notifications from Expo notifications. And here I'm just going to wrap this in an if statement specifying that if a user exists, then we are able to perform all of these actions. Now we just need to export add push token and set allows notifications within this object. Now let's go to use notifications, and here we need to get those functions add push token, set allows notifications, and user from use user. Here we'll say if no user, return. Here, if final status is not equal to granted, we will set allows notifications to false if the user allows notifications. And underneath our token here, we will add that push token to the user and set allows notifications to true if the user currently has that flag as false or null. Now I'm going to create a new screen called account settings screen. These will be our imports. These will be the styles we're going to use. Here we'll export our component, get the user, and set allows notifications, as well as register for push notifications. And then we will have this notifications changed function, and we'll return a screen with just a row and some text for notifications, and then a toggle to toggle if the user allows notifications or if they no longer will. So if a user currently doesn't allow for notifications and they put that setting into their settings, not within our application, but on their device, then we'd like to alert them that even if they toggle the toggle here, that they still aren't going to receive notifications. So I'm going to pass this. So I'm going to have an optional parameter in this register for push notifications async function. So let's go there. It's in use notifications. So we'll say alert user. That will be an optional Boolean. And here, if the final status is not equal to granted, we will alert the user to enable push notifications in their settings. And now we just need to import alert from React Native and open settings from, I believe it's Expo linking. And we also want to show that only when alert user is true. So if alert user, then we will alert the user. All right, now we can go back here and this should all check out. Now let's go add this screen to our index file. And down below our bottom tab navigator, I'm going to create a new stack for the account screen and the account settings. So here I need to import this, and then for this bottom tab screen, the last one, this will now say account root. The component is going to be account stack. The tab bar label is going to be account. And now I need to go into my types and add in some new types. So let's alter root stack param list, and then let's create the account tab param list and go back into here and import this. Now let's go into the account screen. Here where we have account settings, we want to change this so that we navigate to that account settings screen. Here for the onPress event, we will navigate to root. Then the screen is going to be account root, and the parameters will have a screen field, which is settings. And before we test it, let's go back to the account settings screen and pass in true for register for push notifications async. And now we can navigate to that screen. So here we see that notifications are allowed for this user, jp22@c.com. And let's go into our database and make sure that that is correct. And here we can see that that is true. So that's what we are expecting. Now let's search for the Expo push token. So that should just be push_tokens. And now let's sign out and rerun this. And here we see that it is now null, which is what we want. And if we sign in again, we will go to jp22@c.com again. We would have to restart the application. So we'd have to close out of it and then go back into it for us to add in the push token back to that account. Here, it should be added in now. So let's rerun this. And there we can see that it exists. And now let's go and turn off the user allowing push notifications. And here we can say allows notifications. And it should be false now. And that is what it is. So now we can turn off on the settings level notifications for Expo. So now if we turn this on, we're going to get this to enable push notifications. Please change your settings. So let's go and open our settings. And here we should really not even allow it to go to true if they aren't allowing for notifications. All right, so here in the account settings screen, we're going to change this notifications change function. And to get started, we're actually going to go to use notifications. And here, where we are saying that we want to alert to the user that they aren't allowing notifications. For this return statement, we are going to throw a new error. So we'll go throw new error, and we'll just say user doesn't allow for notifications. Okay, and now we can leverage this back in the account settings screen. So we're going to wrap this in a try-catch block. And then we will go ahead and do this. And we will also leverage the checked argument that gets passed into this function. So that is going to be a Boolean, and it's coming from this toggle component. If checked is false, then just set allows notifications to false. Otherwise, we'll get rid of this. We will set allows notifications to checked, and then we will await the register for push notifications async function, passing in true. And if we get an error during this, we are just going to set allows notifications to the opposite of checked. And we're doing this because this allows for a better user experience with the toggle button. If we don't do it like this, I've found that the toggle button is kind of glitchy. So now if we test this out, we can first go to our database to see that this user does not allow for notifications. And if we turn this on, we get this error saying that they don't allow for notifications in their settings. So now we go back here. It's still set to false. Now we'll open up our settings, turn notifications on, turn this on, and here allows notifications is true. So that is going to be it for this one. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching.